go down to Bob Roop and the Malenkos at ringside.
I'm here at ringside with Joe and Dean Malenko. Geez, guys, you are really upset today.
Off is more like it, Bob. This piece of paper here is a piece of paper that says we won Jumbo Beretta and Dusty Brooks in the worst possible way. We've never in our lives been so serious about any two men. They're ours.
Dean Malenko.
I don't think I'm even a little pissed off in comparison to my brother who's been wronged.
Dean.
Let him tell you about it.
Hey guys, it's your boy Wolf here. I'm going to keep this short and sweet because over the next 4 episodes, I'm going to have Bob Roop and Joe Malenko joining me for conversations. Bob Roop, as a former Olympian participating in the 1968 Olympics, and he later transitioned into a Hall of Fame career in professional wrestling. Joe Malenko, as the last name should be on your head there, comes from a family of wrestlers that includes his father Boris, his sister Debbie, and his brother Dean. Joe is a multiple-time All Japan Pro Wrestling Junior Heavyweight Champion of the World and was recently inducted into the Florida Mixed Martial Arts Hall of Fame. As you know, my interviews aren't really interviews. They're more conversations and generally whatever comes to our mind. That is why I always stress that these are stories about nothing. They're stories about everything and nothing all at the same time. On this episode, we cover just a wide range of things, such as good and evil. We talk about Bob Roop's feud with Steve Kern and the nuclear heat that a wrestler can get, such as needing to pack some weaponry in order to protect themselves. We end with a little bit of talk about interactions and backstage memories of Dusty Rhodes. Someday I'll post the full 2 hour and 45 minutes that we recorded, but I wanted to make sure that we get to the heart of the matter for each of these episodes. So with that said, I hope you all enjoy as Bob Roop, Joe Malenko, and myself share stories about nothing. Take care. I usually don't really have much of a plan. It's more conversation. Like, honestly, what we were doing here is perfectly fine with me.
Well,
but
so lead us in a direction here. Oh, wise one.
I started to, and it already went off topic.
Well,
I already started listing stuff out.
Okay, so you were saying about talking about my dad.
Talking about your dad. Let's
well, because
talk.
he passed away so long ago, I really don't talk about him anymore.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm kidding.
I don't know. Some people are like that. You know, some people they don't like doing it.
No.
Yeah.
I'll even at this point in time, I'll even talk shit about my dad because he was
okay. I'd like to have like an honest, like a lot of people like will be like, oh, he was the greatest man of all time, blah, blah, blah. Like my wife and I do like watching those like true crime shows, and they always like the person that died, they always are saying like they were such a heartwarming person. They would give the whatever.
And they
then
say that about the person. They also say that about the person who killed the guy who died.
Yeah. And so it's like, I don't like that. That's why I don't really like asking about the person, because a lot of times you just get, oh, they were such a great person. Like they always did this. They always were nice. And it's like, no, everyone's a piece of shit at some point in their life. unless they're a priest.
We all have the ability, you know, I can speak from age 83. I mean, that's the only thing I've got on you guys is a few years. But we all have the ability to be good. Mm-hmm. We have the ability to be nasty, or even evil. It depends on what choices we make. And, you know, basically the kind of self happiness or self-respect and morale and all that you have in your life depends on what decisions you make. You know, if you make horrible, now we have these things, and I don't want to say they're hypocrites, but people that are born again, and you know, I murdered 75 people, but I'm born again, and so I'm fine, and you know, as long as they don't go out and murder another 75 people, I can live with it. I think it's a horse crap excuse, but you know, I'm not going to doubt anybody's sincerity. But a lot of the people that claim that they go ahead and repeat their terrible behavior. But your attitude is very important. A character, in my opinion, comes from being able to control, the good little imp on one shoulder and the nasty little dark imp on the other one, the dark side of the forest. To be able to control those, we all have them. We're human beings. That's the way it is. We're born that way. Some people don't believe in genetics. I happen to. And our genetic makeup prepared us for everything. Prepared early man to be really, really nasty, like when in the middle of the night, a saber-toothed tiger wandered into the cave. It wasn't time to be a nice guy. It was time to get up and beat the crap out of him or try to save your family. So we were, from earliest days, we've always had the capacity to be very good or very bad. Character, I believe, depends on what choices you make. And usually we have to live with those choices. And some people don't have much of a conscience. They don't look inward at themselves. I have some relatives like that. And so they keep making the same stupid mistakes over and over again that make them unhappy. And, it's hard to give advice to, your relatives. They don't want to hear it because a sibling rivalry thing is always there. But for me personally, I've just discovered that I have a much happier life by behaving myself, by trying to be decent. It doesn't hurt to be kind or nice. Now, I was at a meeting last night with 8 women and one other man, and the other man had been married for 40 years, so he might as well have been one of the women. So I was there with like 9 women, and all my age, all in their 80s, and oh my God, I'm so immature because they all seem to me like not my parents. They seem to me like my grandparents, the crap they were talking about. I couldn't tell even one wrestling story. I mean, if I'd have said the word dildo, probably half of them would have had a stroke. So, to get, to be with people more I'm not going to say it, I'm a lot older, not a lot, but I'm older than you guys.
Oh, a lot.
But
No, you are a lot.
A lot.
Well, the thing is, we all have in common is having been exposed to the wrestling business.
But you're emotionally stunted. Your growth. You're yeah.
Of course.
I mean, we come from a business that promotes being a kid for your entire life.
Yeah, you're in a bubble. You're in a bubble. I used to say fish bowl, but goldfish can get out of a bubble. My Ray Russell, great co-host of our podcast together, the Wrestling Stoop with Bob Roop. Now I'm only going to talk about that for an hour, but anyway, Ray has that philosophy too. That trying to be, he's got kids, and to try to be a good example, to be set a good example for his kids. I made a pledge when my second son, who's now in his 30s, was born, and at the same time we moved up here to Michigan from Florida. I made a pledge to myself that I was going to try to behave. I had been doing drugs, and I don't mean like heroin or anything, but cocaine, pot. I never liked uppers, but downers. But I made a pledge that I was going to behave myself, and I did. Basically, I still drank more than I should, but I even stopped that about 15 years ago. I never was an alcoholic. I just I like to drink to help me go to sleep at night. I had a sleep problem, but anyway, I forgot where the hell we started, but
You took it off all on your own, so we're
Yeah.
just letting you go.
I'm just here
Just listening.
experiencing all that is Roop.
Yeah,
Now,
we're under the learning tree right now.
well, uh, what you said, Jody, is true though. And when we're in pro wrestling, we are in that bubble, and you can't interact, especially if you got a gimmick. If you're somebody else, you have to pretend to be somebody else, and some of that is so unbelievably weird that you go to these reunions, and the people who do their other persona, their public persona, in front of a crowd, when you get alone with them, just
They're
you
still
and
there.
them.
Yeah,
They do that same persona.
They
You
can't.
know, like a guy walks up to me and said, like I always use an example, Paul Newman walking up to me and said, "Hey, yeah, I'm Butch Cassidy. Nice to meet you." I said, "No, wait a minute. That's just a role you played. Aren't you Paul Newman?" "Oh, no, I'm Butch Cassidy." Well, that's what, to me, wrestlers, I don't say that guys have to, always introduce themselves by their real name, but when you're with the other boys, relax. I mean, we know most of you never had a match that was a real fight where you were struggling for your life or your health or whatever. But that doesn't detract from what we did or what you did. Going out there in front of a big crowd or small crowd. In fact, it's harder in front of a small crowd. But going out there and getting people to suspend their disbelief and get into your match takes talent, it takes skill, and it takes time. Normally, it takes, Ronnie Garvin used to say, it takes a normal person 10 years to learn the business. And he was right. I had the advantage of being a booker and working with bookers fairly early. So I had a kind of a break, but it still took me. That angle that I did with Steve Kern was so stupid to do that. Just showed my inexperience because
Are you talking about the one where you said his dad was a coward for being
yeah,
a POW? Because
yeah.
my funny story, I told my cousins and a couple friends I was doing this, and they sent me a YouTube video back saying this guy in all caps, and I said, yeah. And because my cousin served in the Marines right after 9/11, he signed up and he spent like the next 25 years doing it. And so he sent me that one where you called his dad a coward, and he was like, this guy in all caps. And I went, yeah. And he's like, hopefully he's not that much a piece of shit.
Well,
No.
And I didn't respond. I didn't respond because I didn't want to lie.
no, not at all. I thought of myself. Actually, before I left the Florida Territory, I asked. I don't know. Gordon Soley was, well, we won't go into that right now, but it'd take 2 hours. But
We'll do another episode on him.
yeah, he gave us time. He gave me time to actually, before I left the territory, a year or two later, I actually apologized that on TV because it was going way too far. Now, Steve Kerr,
But you weren't the first. You weren't the first one, Bob.
Yeah.
yeah,
Saul Weingroff stood in the Miami Beach Convention Center in front of a predominantly Jewish crowd and asked for a moment of silence for those people for the Nazis at Nuremberg.
Oh my God!
Holy
Oh my God! He had a death wish.
Yeah. Wow.
Oh man!
That's an honest to God story.
Oh, well, I believe it. I mean,
he was a character. Well, Saul was a character.
Oh, well, especially a manager. I mean, you got to stand outside the ring, unless he had a personal bodyguard watching his back, or he was wearing a flak jacket or something. Oh man, that takes a lot of guts. Well, the thing about the Kern thing, Steve Kern came to me and said he suggested the idea, and I said, well, it sounds kind of drastic. I said, can I meet your father first? And he took me, I met his dad.
Oh, wow.
And I asked him about it. And his dad wasn't enthusiastic, but after 8 years in a hole in the ground of mud and people,
you could be enthusiastic about anything.
Get tortured every day. I mean, he basically said, and this is kind of sad in a way, but he kind of said, you guys go ahead and do what you want. He said, it's okay with me. He said, I really don't care. And at that stage of his life, so much had been taken out of him, all those years of his children growing up that he missed, and all that torture and everything had taken so much out of him that he didn't have much vitality, like his zest for life, elan. Didn't have much of that left. But I did get his permission. I mean, he was sane. He was okay. But I did get his permission. Looked him in the eye and got his permission before I was going to do anything. I shook his hand before I was going to do anything like that
You were
because
good.
I knew how
Mhm.
serious they didn't know what I was going to say, but I did. And I knew it was going to be hot. I didn't know it was going to be volcanic hot. I didn't know. The funny one was right after I did it, Jody Hamilton, who had been through he and Tom Ernesto used to try to invent new ways to get heat. They had all these stories of being chased out of these small towns at 100 miles an hour with people actually shooting at them, and trying to run them down and run them off the road. And they'd tell these stories about, I mean, not more than once, but like all the time. And so he was a guy that was used to getting heat. When I came back after that interview I did about Colonel Curran, Jody was the booker. Jody Hamilton was the booker there in the Florida Territory at the time. And he said, Bobby, he said, son, he says, if you're not armed now, he said, I'd advise you to get some, quick. He said, you better get you at least two pieces of weaponry. So I'd advise high caliber shotgun for one, and maybe a 357 Magnum for the other. And I did, because later that week, my girlfriend came home from. She was working as a hostess over at the MacDill Air Force Base, and she came home and she said, "What happened on TV? What did you do?" She said, I overheard some guys tonight talking about finding our house. Well, she and I were living together.
Good.
She said, finding our house and throwing one of those big anti-tank mines through our plate glass window in our living room. I said, "Holy crap!" So yeah, I went out and purchased the weaponry. I never had to use it, but I did have a few people shoot at me, but it wasn't over that. It was just other things, and it wasn't. It was always from a distance. Nobody was up close, thank God. But yeah, that was one that Steve and I were both too green really to do it. He didn't have. He should have checked with me. Bob, exactly what are you going to say?
Mhm.
Because he didn't have any idea. And the thing that made it so good was that when he came out to attack me after I had made the comments, when he ran by the TV camera, it has a big round base to keep it from tipping over if it's knocked into, because
Yep.
the camera itself is worth thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. So when Steve was running by the camera, he was running as close as he could to the camera to get to me as quickly as he could. His ankle hit the steel ring around the bottom of the metal,
Oh.
and he thought he broke his ankle. So when he came up after jumping on me, he just leapt from where he was because he was afraid to step on that ankle again. He thought he broke it. So he just leapt on me. And then once the two Orton Sr. and Bobby Jr. came out and pulled him off me, or pulled me out of there, he got up and because his ankle was killing him, he was crying, or he had tears in his eyes, and his wife, she said, "Roop, you can pick on me, but leave my dad alone. He he suffered enough." Oh my
Oh,
God! I walked back into the
you
middle.
wanted to beat the shit out of yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, I walked
Yeah.
back in there, and Jody Hamilton and Jim Barnett were the ones that were in the back, in the office in there waiting. Barnett's walking back and forth. Now Barnett, I've been in Australia for him 3 times. I've seen everything. I've seen wrestling all the way out from the arena out into the street, fighting, running people into buses, all kinds of unbelievable crap. But Barnett's walking back and forth. He's going, "Oh my God, Bobby, what have you done? Oh God, Bobby, what have you done?" Then I started worrying. I thought, if this guy who I've seen do everything in the world is worried, I said maybe I'll be a little worried too. And and right after that, Jody said, "Bobby, if you don't have any weapons, son, I'd buy you to get some." So yeah, that was one to remember. But it really, the problem was, and this is a whole another hour, 2:10, was that Dusty uh, didn't do it himself. Although Dusty had a piece of the office, and he was part of the booking, at least for himself. And this is all history. I'm not making this up. But Dusty needed to stay on top, like Hogan. He needed to stay on top to keep his momentum, his being over momentum. He needed to stay in top matches. So the current angle, we could have gone a year. We went about 4 months, I think, and that was over. We were into cage matches and stuff within a couple of months. And I mean, I was a booker myself 3 different times. I know I could have stretched that. I could have done a period of a month, putting myself under a hood and totally avoiding him, staying away from him, saying, or pretending to be hurt. I can't wrestle him. I'm hurt. And then attacking him, putting on the hood and attacking him from behind and doing that. But Dusty, and God, rest in peace, Dusty. You had a great career, much more illustrious than mine. You're a wonderful, wonderful character that you created in the wrestling business. All the respect in the world. You made 20 times more money, 50 times more money than I did. But you were ambitious to the point of really not caring about what happened to other people. We did a match in Jacksonville. We'd done a show on TV on Wednesday. They had Jack, and then Dusty and I were booked. It was bad booking, but we were booked in Jacksonville on Thursday. We did the angle on Wednesday where he brought out I came up with it. He brought out my Olympic record book, and he said, "Look here, look at this. This Bob Bruce been claiming to be an Olympic champion all these years, and look at this. He took 7th place." So he ended up tearing the page out of my book, my record book, and throwing it in the ring and getting in the ring and leaving me laying there, bleeding, laying there. I mean, out. And then the next night we met in Jacksonville. They hadn't even seen the show yet. And for some reason, we were booked in Jacksonville in the main event. The week before, they'd had a 2-ring battle royal with Andre and 25 guys in the 2-ring battle royal. And they do this is Jacksonville. They drew about $30,000. Well, the night that Dusty and I wrestled, they did 29. And I was working in the office as assistant booker, so I knew what the gate was. And Dusty came in and said, hey, great house. Oh, we really raised it up. And I said, I was stupid. Being green. I said, well, actually, it's down. I said, it's down $1,000. I said, but they haven't seen our TV yet. They haven't seen any angle between us at all. This was a cold match. The fact that we drew 20, drew as well as we did is great. And we were in this little tiny dressing room by ourselves. They have the star dressing rooms at this theater, a big room for, the spear carriers. And then the stars have their own little dressing rooms on the side. We were in one of those. It was just me and him. And he looked at me and he said, well, let me tell you something. He said, I'm in the big leagues now. And if you can't measure up, I'll get somebody else. And walked out. Nice. I'm sitting there trying to, I had blood for him that night. I'm trying to close the gap on my forehead. And he tells me stuff like that. I tell you, man, I mean, I didn't get mad. I was stunned. But it gave me a certain opinion. Uh, I got one other funny Dusty story. Dusty, Dusty will always do Dusty even in the dressing room. I ran into him one time years, not that we're still both working. I was out in Mid-South working for Watts. He came out there and I had to run into him. I think it was in the parking lot at the airport. I don't remember, but it was just me and him. And he didn't do Dusty Rhodes with me. He did Virgil Reynolds. He was talking to me like from like the real person he was.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't doing hey baby and all that Dusty stuff. Now he used to do that in the dressing room, before and after the matches. He was always on stage, which is okay. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's fine. But I thought it was weird. But I wrestle under my own name. His real name was Virgil Reynolds. I was always Bob Roop, and my values didn't change much. But so anyway, he was great.